What's the hardest thing about writing? Well, it's getting started. Maybe you're having a hard time coming up with a story idea, or you're stuck on where to take your story next. If you want a way into a story or a way through, I have 9 story starters to help you. This free PDF is full of story seeds and prompts to get you going. To download your 9 story starters, go to nancypanuccio.com/start. That's Nancy with an I, Panuccio with 2 C's, nancypanuccio.com/start. This process can completely change your relationship to your writing, and it can change you, not just your story, because ultimately, writing is a way we get to some kind of truth. Whether you're writing fiction or memoir, there's some evolving question your story asks, or something you're trying to learn about yourself in relation to your past or in relation to the world. Maybe it's about human nature or about something that happened. And when the story works, both writer and reader seem to arrive at that truth together. Writer Unleashed is for you, a writer who has a story you want to bring onto the page and into the hearts and minds of readers. I'm Nancy Panuccio, writer, editor, and writing coach. And each week, we'll explore techniques, mindsets, and inspiration for writing stories readers can't put down. Thanks for spending some time with me today. Now let's begin. What do you do when you can't come up with an idea for a story? Or maybe you have a feeling about what you want to write, but you don't know where to start. Maybe you have too many ideas, or you may have your story already outlined, but you're having trouble bringing it to life. Now, the thing about ideas is that they can be all over the place. They can be scattered. They can run away from us. They can be vague, abstract, not fully formed, or they can be too controlled and static. So today we're going to do a 2-step process that you can alternate between as you write your story, as you develop your story. It combines brief spurts of intuitive free writing so you can generate your most potent writing with stepping back to locate the focal point of what you just wrote. So it's a 2-step developmental process for writing your story. Now, common struggles writers wrestle with are getting started, sticking to it, struggling to keep the story moving, never feeling quite ready to write. So you may have a hard time getting the words initially on the page. Or you have the feeling and vision of your story or scenes, but when you go to write it, it branches out in a myriad of directions. In last week's episode 122, we talked about why free writing can help dislodge blocks and resistance. And in today's episode, we're going to talk about how to take your raw material and start to find a focus and structure within it so that you can eventually see the shape of your raw material and produce a finished, powerful piece of writing. So we can think of any writing project in 2 ways. We have ideas, and then we have the development of those ideas. So when we're talking about ideas, we're talking about innovative ways of conveying something. So it's something new that you're bringing to the world with your story. Now, we can't manufacture original ideas. We can't think them into being. They come from intuition and impulse and imagination. So original ideas means finding a new spin on what you're bringing to the world with your story. We're taking something that's familiar to the reader and disrupting that reality. So we're putting a fresh spin on the familiar or bringing something familiar to the unfamiliar. So here's the two-step process, and you'll alternate between these as you write your story. You'll move back and forth between the two. It combines brief spurts of intuitive free writing so you can generate your most potent ideas with stepping back to locate the focal point of what you just wrote. So we're going to generate new ideas and then develop those ideas in a way that's more structured so the reader can receive it. This is a developmental method of writing. So rather than start with an outline, rather than control the story, you allow the story to emerge and then you outline or structure based on what you have on the page. This is ideal for when you have a sense that you have something important to write, but you don't quite know what or how to start. It's also great when you don't feel quite ready to write. You have a hard time getting the words initially on the page, and just getting started is a struggle. You may already have an outline, but you're still struggling to actually populate that outline, breathe life into it, and keep the story moving. Or you're like me. You have ideas that keep sprouting new ideas, but they're in complete chaos and you're getting lost in the mess of it. Either way, you're at a standstill. So this method invites the most intuition. It also invites the most chaos. It takes more time because with this process, you're letting the writing guide you on what it wants to be. You're trusting your own impulses. You're pulling from your own inner self-knowing about what story you're longing to tell and why it matters to you. It's got to matter to you if it's going to matter to your reader. So this may help you birth a piece of writing you haven't even thought of yet, a piece of writing that's not yet in you consciously. It can help you gain deeper insight into the story you've been trying to write, or it can help get you unstuck when you hit an impasse. This is a technique for thinking, seeing, and feeling new things. So there's discovery and then harnessing your raw material into a shape that keeps guiding you forward. Now, you have to be willing to cultivate a story through many stages over a long period of time and build a tolerance for not knowing where you're going some or even most of the time. Every story has its own gestation period, and you never know how long that gestation period will be. Gaston Bachelard said this: "Non-knowing is not a form of ignorance, but a difficult transcendence of knowledge." Non-knowing is not a form of ignorance, but a difficult transcendence of knowledge. So this process can completely change your relationship to your writing, and it can change you, not just your story, because ultimately writing is a way we get to some kind of truth. Whether you're writing fiction or memoir, there's some evolving question your story asks, or something you're trying to learn about yourself in relation to your past or in relation to the world. Maybe it's about human nature or about something that happened. And when the story works, both writer and reader seem to arrive at that truth together. So this method relies more on instinct than intellect, although your intellect will also have a hand in this. This is great for short stories. It's great for novels. It can also lead you to essays. Now, when you start this process, ideally, you don't know in advance what you're going to end up with. So there are no preconceived thoughts about what kind of writing it's going to be. or what you're going to write. So try to stay away from deciding what form this piece of writing will take. Allow yourself to disengage from what you've decided this piece of writing will be. You might start out thinking you're going to write a novel and end up writing a memoir, or you might plan on writing a short story and end up with an essay that works out something that perplexes or frustrates you. You may have already started something, or you're knee-deep already into a draft. This may take it in a new direction that surprises you. It may give you an insight into your character that you didn't have before. This will also help you get a firm fix on the point of your story so you know what to throw away and what to add, what to expand and deepen, and ultimately how to structure your story. Now, I know a lot of you resist uncertainty. We cling to certainty because it's so uncomfortable to not know where we're going. But we don't really know what we're going to write until we write it. The uncertainty is sometimes very uncomfortable to embrace, but the uncertainty creates space in your writing to create something that wasn't there before. It can break open your story so that ultimately it's a lot easier to write and revise. So the idea is to keep writing until the piece of writing is fully baked, developed, and grown. So there are two stages. The first is the expedition stage. Here we're exploring what's inside of us that wants to be expressed. The second stage is where you arrive on new land. So there's a new understanding of what it is you're writing about, and you start to see a shape emerge. In the expedition stage, you want to lose sight of the place where you began. So you'll wander. You may get lost. I know this is uncomfortable, but trust me, you'll be okay. Getting lost is the best source of new material and new insights. So if you start feeling lost, don't panic, because you're not just going to be writing aimlessly with no direction. You'll develop a new conception of what you're writing about. So you'll have a new idea or a new vision, and then you'll gradually reshape your material to fit this new vision. So in the first stage, allow your writing to deviate, digress, vary, diverge, and proliferate. Let it be messy and raw. A lot of the writing process is throwing away the excess. So let go of the idea that your writing has to be beautiful or fully formed on the first go. This can make your writing too careful and too safe and too precious, and then it's much harder to discard the bits that don't serve the story. Now, the expedition stage is also one of confusion. We don't know yet what's inside of us that's needing to come out, and so we're losing a certain amount of control, maybe a lot of control. But the coming to land stage is where you're going to make connections. It's where you'll be able to prune the excess. It's where you find the heart of what you just wrote. It's where you centralize and clarify the raw writing. Okay, so here are the 2 steps. Number 1, do a non-stop free writing that starts from where you happen to be. Now, most often, you just start with a thought or a feeling or a memory that feels important to you, or a scene you envision. Maybe you have something in mind for a story or essay, or there are images that refuse to let you go, or characters or events are compelling you to write a story. There may be a particular moment you're feeling pulled to write about. Maybe you have an idea of what kind of story you want to end up with. Now, you probably won't end up with that, but that's not the point. The point of this writing sprint is to write without inhibition and to bring forth what's in you that you didn't know was there. So just start writing. Just start writing about anything at all. You're not going to worry about spelling or grammar, or even writing complete sentences. Let it be messy, let it be raw. We're going to pull from that raw writing what feels important to extract. Now, if you have trouble with that initial confrontation with the blank page, ask yourself what you don't want to write about and start writing about that. Don't let your resistance have the upper hand. Maybe write about what it feels like to be blocked until something else emerges. Maybe write about something that happened 20 minutes ago. Maybe there's something you're anxious about. Write about that. What comes up might be a childhood memory or a painful loss, a fear. It may be a scene you want to open up and explore. Now, a lot of writers have resistance to this kind of free writing. They have a fear that it's going to be wild and untamed and therefore harder to structure or to get your arms around because it could feel chaotic. And a lot of writers are afraid that it's just going to lead to bad writing and this loss of control. We're conditioned to have a lot of control over what we write and how we write it. So, for example, my kid is often writing essays, and there's a certain rubric that they have to follow. So they have to come up with a thesis, first of all. So let's say a position on the French Revolution, and then there's the outline, and then you write a certain word or page count. So it's very methodical. So you start out knowing what you're writing about or what your position is, and then you write sentence by sentence rather than free write for 10 minutes to learn what you really think about the French Revolution and then find the thesis from there. So we're trained to decide what we think or feel before we write. And this is why so many writers start with an outline before they write the story. But you will be throwing away most of what you've written in your nonstop free write. The purpose of this is to immerse yourself in your relationship to what you're writing. So first thoughts, first feelings. Those first thoughts will likely lead you to what you are needing to write. It helps you discover why this story matters to you, the internal impetus. The second step will help you zero in on the point or what you want to say about human nature or what you want to say about the state of the world or relationships or what question you want to explore. You want to unload what's top of mind for you. So keep writing for at least 10 or 20 or 30 minutes. Now, the amount of time you spend here depends on how much material and energy you have. So don't stay too long on this because you don't want to start pausing in the midst of your writing. So 10 minutes minimum, maybe as long as 30 minutes. Just stop when you start pausing in the middle of your writing. When you start losing momentum, you're going to stop. So you've done your burst of writing. Step 2, you're going to stop, sit back, be quiet, and bring all that raw writing you just did to a point. Read back or just think back over your raw material. Find the center or focus in what you just wrote. Write it down in one sentence. Try to sum it up in one focusing sentence. Now, you might want to circle images or words that feel the most emotional pull for you. This is a very intuitive exercise, and you'll feel it in your body. So you want to find the center of gravity. It might be an image or object or feeling. It may be something that feels totally unrelated to what you just wrote, but it comes to you now as a result of that burst of writing you just did. It might be as simple as there must be some reason this happened. It might be in the form of a question, like, what effect did my parents' unconventional lifestyle have on me? Why did I steal when I was 15? Why 30 years later am I still unable to get over the death of my twin sister? How does the patriarchal system suppress women? So what's the raw nerve here? Try to stand out of the way and let the center or focus itself come forward. Trust your instincts. You're looking for the center of gravity. So it's nonstop writing, and then you're going to probe for the center. So number one, nonstop writing. Number two, probe for the center. Now, you've used two types of consciousness here. You have immersion, where you have this raw burst of writing, and then you have perspective. So immersion, then perspective. So you look down on what you've written from an altitude and you start getting a sense of shape. Okay, you've located the focal point, and now you're going to repeat the cycle. You're going to take that focusing statement or focusing idea, and you're going to use that as a springboard for a new burst of nonstop writing. So let that focal point bounce into new writing. Or maybe you just take that focal point and write more about it, expand on it. Trust your impulses. Maybe you just write what comes next. It might be a related topic or a new idea. Maybe the focusing sentence you wrote doesn't need to be expanded on. Maybe it feels complete enough so that you go on to write what comes next. And maybe the next thing is just what's next in your mind. The next thing might be a jump in time or logic. Just trust what comes up. Maybe the next thing challenges or questions what you've already written. Maybe you even feel like writing in a different genre, from fiction to memoir, or vice versa, from realistic fiction to fantasy. You just want to get out of the way and see what happens. So you're going to jump into a second burst of nonstop writing for however long you can keep up the momentum, long enough to lose sight of where you started, but not so long that you keep pausing or judging what you're writing or losing momentum. Then again, you're going to stop, come out of your immersion, and get some perspective. Find the summing up or focus or center of gravity for the second phase. Repeat this cycle over and over again. So you'll keep up one session of writing long enough to get limber and tired, long enough to make a bit of a voyage, and maybe even pass beyond what was originally in your mind. So usually this process takes several long sittings. So when do you stop? When do you know you're finished? You're finished when you get a trustworthy vision of your final piece of writing. So you see where it's going. Maybe you see it's a short story and you feel the general shape of it, or you see that it's a novel. Maybe you already knew it was a novel, but you've gotten your vision clearer and more complete. Maybe your first glimpse showed you a central idea or defining event. And now you need to write out that central event or idea more fully. If what's emerging for you is conceptual, let's say an essay, maybe this is a good time to make an outline. But you won't be able to see your structure clearly until you go through all you've written to find the points that feel important and write each one into a complete sentence. And then you're going to put these sentences into the most logical or easily understood order. Now, for a long story, maybe this is where you start using a structuring tool like Scrivener so you can see it at one glance. Now, it may be too early for an outline. Maybe you can't get this final vision clear and write unless you plunge into a new draft with your present frame of mind. So maybe you start with the first scene of the story or novel or the introductory thought and just use that energy to keep going. Perhaps writing it is more helpful at this point than planning or outlining. Now, what if after you've done several sittings, you're still not sure what the point of your writing is? Well, go through all your focusing sentences, write them down, put them into a Google Doc, let them simmer, have a think on them for a while. Then engage in some nonstop writing on the basis of those focusing sentences. So try to get the important elements to bounce against each other and see where the connections are. What are some of the common denominators? What are some of the common themes? Free write on this. Have your own conversation with your work. Keep up this burst of writing, this attempt to figure out what your writing is about as long as you can, so you can use your free writing to help you figure out what you're writing about, because you have all the answers within you. And if that doesn't work, put your writing away and don't look at it for a while. Come back to it later, a couple of weeks, a month, however long it takes you to gain more distance. Or you can work with a writing coach or a writing buddy. But don't worry if your story is taking a long time to emerge. This just means it's probably important to you, and there's some complicated and vital reordering of things that's trying to take place inside you. So allow your story to cook. Now, some patterns to be aware of as you explore your material through the free writing. The writing may change moods. It may change tone. It may change points of view. It may change from first person to third person. It may switch from fiction to memoir. Allow things to shift. Maybe all the writing you've done through this process circles around the same territory. So your writing will bring forth successive images of the same general scene until you finally get the right perspective and focus. For example, maybe you start writing about a particular afternoon or moment that feels significant to you, and your writing leads you to different views of that same event. So successive versions of what happened, successive attempts to say what it means. Or maybe you start writing about a particular confrontation with someone where some harsh truths were spoken, and that's what all your writing continues to be about. Maybe first you describe what actually happened, and then you write how it felt from your point of view. Maybe you write about what the other person must have felt, and then you make up a version. Maybe the writing doesn't circle over the same territory. Maybe it takes you far away on a roving journey far from where you started. Or maybe you find that you've been writing one draft of a single long work. Maybe it's a novel or a memoir. So you're using the pauses to sum up what you seem to be saying. And these periodic focusings are pauses in a slow unwinding of a single long narrative. Now, I know I've given you a lot to think about, but this is not complicated. Just start writing, and keep the process going until you figured out what you're writing. And when you've done that, keep writing until you get it right. This is the heart of the process. So rather than write your story once and then edit it, you write it 4 times and help the story evolve through those 4 versions. So it comes more into focus. So you're going to let yourself start without knowing where you're going. And then you're going to alternate between nonstop writing and pausing to focus on what you've written. Now, if your nonstop writing is going great, you may feel there's no need to stop and focus. But if you're writing and writing without getting anywhere, without landing anywhere, it helps to move deliberately back and forth between immersion and perspective. So doing this will help each new wave of writing carry you further and make each pause not just a rest, but an active opportunity for progress. The idea behind this method is letting yourself write your story wrong the first time, even the second or third time. And when you have a story or an idea, but you can't quite get your arms around it, just by starting to write and forging ahead, you eventually find what it is you're trying to write about, and the shape and the structure comes more and more into focus. So there you have it. Thanks for hanging out with me today. And if you know any writers who need some support in their writing, please share this episode or the Writer Unleashed podcast in general. And if you love what you're listening to, subscribe on your favorite listening platform and please leave me a review. Reading how this podcast impacts your writing truly lights me up and helps me create topics for the show. Till next time, keep writing, and I'll talk to you soon.